Chris, do you even age, bro?
Do I age? Yes.
Do you do
Yes,
age?
I age. Yes, yes. My body feels like the body of an 80-year-old. Yeah.
You still look. I mean, you still look pretty young though. Like everybody's like, man,
Thanks.
this guy didn't age at all.
Yeah, hair dye, I guess. I don't know. No, I got two little kids, and I never really stopped making music. So there was never a point where like I had to like get a job or anything.
Right.
So I never had that sort of stress that'll, you know, do that to you or whatever. Other than the kid, like having kids, but I actually really enjoy having kids. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's like I mean, I like having kids too, but I don't know, man. I'm balding in the middle there. It's really strange, you know. You don't want to lose your hair. You seem like you haven't lost any hair.
Not much. I've gained a lot in like my ears and like these weird gray things hanging in the places that you don't want to. Yeah, there's a lot of extra hair happening in places that are not cool. But,
so I had all these I had all these questions for you when we a couple weeks back, but since the release of the EP and everything, I sort of changed everything around here.
Okay.
And since we're on the
did
post,
you get your EPs?
Oh yeah, I got both of them. The other one was for my buddy. He's like a long-time guy. He doesn't even he doesn't go on the internet, so he's no Facebook, no internet, so he has like no idea ever what's going on. And
that's a lot of our fans, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because we at one point we had 1.2 million fans, and now we seem to have about 1,200. And I know there's more out there. It's just they're just not looking at, like, they don't randomly Google bands I liked from the 90s, you know? So
yeah,
it's hard to get people to realize in their busy lives that, hey, something I liked when I was a child is happening again.
Well, I've found it fascinating because, you know, with the little bit of an audience I have, I'm like an independent band, you know what I mean? I'm like a band with a small audience. And when I started playing you guys' stuff and when I talk about you, I find that, you know, a lot of people don't know, or a lot of people remember one or two songs, but then there's people that DM me and they're like, wow, thanks for bringing them up. I forgot all about them. I had Darkest Days, or I had With a Blister, and I really loved them. And like, I just started listening this whole week because of this. And so like that tells me there's so many people that don't even know the Dreaming happened.
Yeah. Oh no, we were definitely a looked over band of the 90s. I'm not saying that with any sort of like, woe is me. We had a great run and we had really great success or whatever, but we never sort of broke into that upper echelon of, you know, Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins and bands like that. We were always sort of this band that had, you know, 5 or 6 hit singles on the radio, but no one really knew who the band was. Like, what do I have to do? Everyone knew it that summer. And Save Yourself, even now you hear it on, you know, Fox NFL on Sundays.
Yeah.
But no one really associates the name Stabbing Westward to that song. It's just a song from the 90s that they, you know, vaguely remember. And that was sort of always the problem with the band, is that we were never able to make that connection past having the cool songs that people know on the radio. There's a lot of bands like us. You know, there's the Nixons and now, you know, Dishwalla and even Gravity Kills and bands like that had, you know, presence on the radio. But if you asked an average, you know, person from that era who they are, they wouldn't remember, you know.
Yeah, and those are all bands that like I really love. So you find yourself, it's like it's like I'm a Star Trek fan. I find the same sort of comparison a little bit to Star Trek fans. Like I'll talk to people and everybody knows the name and the Beam Me Up Scotty thing, but I love certain things, and so I start talking about it, and it's like, wow, I'm a fanboy of this, and you don't know what I'm talking about. It's sort of a niche thing.
So are you more Star Trek than Star Wars?
Oh yeah, like
me too.
Right. So like I love Star Wars and like it's fun and stuff like that, but I just always loved like I'd take Star Trek: The Next Generation with me to like an island. Like if I had that's the movie I would take.
Well, Star Trek, the original series, the Shatner series, predicted so much of life in the 20th century, the 21st century.
Right.
The gadgets they had ended up being cell phones and iPads. The only thing we don't have are, cool phasers. But
you remember the razor? I'd flip my razor open like I'm in Star Trek now.
Oh, it's totally a recorder. Yeah, it was totally a communicator. I mean, yeah, it was like absolutely. Yeah, so I always thought that Star Trek had was a better sort of concept than Star Wars was just kind of a Western in my mind. I mean, I like Western. Star Wars, don't get me wrong, but yeah, and Luke, man. When I was a kid, I thought Luke was so cool, and then I watched him as a grown-up. It's like, dude, you're so whiny. What is your problem? I wanted to go to town, and yeah. It's like, shut up. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. No, he is whiny. It's weird because he reminds you of Anakin in the prequels, kind of. And you're like, oh, I can see the father-son comparison. They both are whiny, except one guy went the wrong way.
Whiny bitches.
Yeah, so that was cool. But yeah, going back to the Stabbing Westward, new everything. Before I get into the Cold music video that just came out, how did the EP do in your eyes? Because it was like a brand new thing. Is it going to be Dreaming fans, the Stabbing Westward fans come back, digitally versus CD? How did you do in your eyes as far as the crowd?
I thought it did great. It was a very short blip. So the analytics tell me that there was a very short blip of activity around the release of the EP, lots of excitement, and then it kind of faded pretty quickly or whatever.
Right.
But the initial excitement was super cool. I really enjoyed that. It was a bit of a sugar rush. I was a little depressed after because it was like a lot of work to kind of get it, like not just the songs, but what ended up happening is we'd had the songs around for a while, and we've been talking about doing an album, and we've been talking to this record label about putting it out with us, and then they just never actually stepped up and put a ring on our finger. It was just a lot of chit chat, and we got tired of waiting and the whole the whole dance of trying to make something happen. So I just said, we got a show January the 11th at Bar Sinister. Some really tiny club in Hollywood. It's for the owner's birthday. We're not going to get paid even a quarter of what we normally make. So let's make it an event. Let's make it something that, is worth doing. And so we said, and I said, let's do the EP that day. And this is like November, October, maybe. Little did I know at that point how hard it would be to get the music on Spotify, to get the music on iTunes. It all goes through the same sort of distribution channel. You
right.
sign up for we signed up for DistroKid, and they have to approve everything. And the first thing they said is, hey, you can't use that name. There's already a band called Stabbing Westward on Spotify. I'm like, yeah, that would be me. And they're like, well, we can't just believe you because, that wouldn't. It's like, well, it's not like I said I was Led Zeppelin or something, like something cool. So I had to actually take a picture holding my driver's license and send it to the people at DistroKid so they would believe me, and then link that to a Wikipedia page that actually said who the singer was and stuff like that. And they finally were like, oh, okay, well, then we'll let you put it up. But because it was over the holidays, it was really scary because everybody shut down from like December 12th through January 3rd. And Walter had arbitrarily picked January 3rd as the day for the EP to come out. He just said, oh, we'll do a week before the 11th, have it come out a week early, January 3rd. But that was the first day that everyone goes back to work. Hang on, my dog's crying. I got to let her in or out. I'm not quite sure what she wants to do. But so yeah, I was sweating bullets because I had to get the music had to be, the final mixes had to be approved between me and Walter. We had to get them mastered, which a guy in England masters are. That's the only thing we don't do in house is we have a mastering guy in England that does it for us. And he's like, 12 hours on the other side of the country. So it's always this weird, and no one in the band felt the urgency that I felt because it was still November. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. If I don't get the music turned in to DistroKid by this date, it's not going to be up. If I don't get the music turned into the CD manufacturing company, it's not going to be available. And it wasn't. The CD wasn't available until the 10th, the day before the show at Bar Sinister.
Oh my God!
So it didn't make it for the 3rd. That's why when people are like, "Can I get it on CD?" I'm like, yes, but I'm not going to list it until I physically have them, because
Right.
I don't want, I wanted to make sure I actually had them.
Yeah, you don't want to order a bunch of CDs and you don't know how many you're going to sell. Did you?
Yeah. So Walter told me, Walter's like, Mr. Radio. He runs a radio station. He ran a station in Chicago. Now he runs one in Seattle. And he's like, CDs, man, nobody buys CDs. Vinyl outsells CDs these days. Just don't even bother with CDs. And I'm like, you know what? There's still people that like to have a physical thing. And I think if we order a few, then we can sell them at shows. It'll be, because people always want something signed at shows. And a CD is like a really good thing to get signed, and you're selling your music. And I thought, you know what? I'm old school. I'm going to order some CDs. So I called the CD manufacturing place in LA, and I said, I want to get, 250 CDs. And he's like, well, the cutoff is 300 for, a decent price. If you get less than 300, they end up costing you a couple bucks a piece or whatever. And it's like, the cutoff is, 300. I'm like, okay, I'll do 300. And then he goes, well, if you get 500, it drops down even lower in price. And you're basically paying almost the same. And so he just kind of kept talking me up. And eventually I ordered 500. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with 500 CDs? I still have boxes of Dreaming CDs in my garage that I've moved 3 times. I'm like sick of looking at them. Like I have to find the Christmas ornaments, and I have to move these freaking heavy boxes of Dreaming CDs. I'm like, what am I? But I ended up getting them in these really cool paper kind of album, like they're cardboard album covers.
Yeah, I got it. It looks nice.
Yeah, so I thought those were much cooler because I can actually sign the cover.
Mm-hmm.
There's no plastic case that gets broken or wasted or thrown away. And it's so much lighter, and they stack like 500 was in a really small box. I could fit 50 of them in like a tiny corner of my suitcase, versus the plastic kind where 20 of them was a big, long, huge box. It weighed 10 pounds. They were really heavy and bulky. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna list these up on the band's webpage and just see if I can sell any of them, see what happens. And I sold all of them. I put 500 up. That's how many I had. And then I had to change it to 450 like an hour later, because I realized I was not going to have any to sell at the show
right
the next day, which is the EP release party. And I thought I should probably have some for the show. And they sold out in like 30 hours or something. And it was kind of crazy. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, now I got to freaking mail 450 CDs, which,
that's
it's
insane.
hard. It's not easy. And I was picturing like, handwriting each address and screwing up half of them because I'm dyslexic, or copying and pasting into some label maker program or something. And then I did some YouTube research, and I was like, okay, if I go to stamps.com or whatever, and I order the scale, and then I order this cool thermal printer, and I get the right size envelopes and everything, and I do it like I invest a little bit of money in setting up an infrastructure
right
to do it, then it took me 2 days to like tag them all up and box them all up and print the post. I printed the postage myself, instead of, if you took 450 CDs to the post office, it would take hours. They would do each one, put in each address, print out a label, and they would use they try and do it priority or whatever, and try and like the shipping would go way up. So I set up this whole infrastructure, and then I'm looking around my office and I'm like, I just like basically started a record label. Like now I can send out CDs. I figured out how to get on iTunes and how to get on Spotify. So I've just created the Stabbing Westward record label.
That's how people do it now. That's how everybody does now.
Yeah.
But how did you with Spotify and iTunes? How did you get that to work out? I mean, I was always wondering about copyright and who owns Stabbing Westward on Spotify, and who are you getting a portion of that? Is Sony? Who owns that? Like what?
No. So you register each song. Sony probably does still get royalties from the first 3 Stabbing records. Yeah. So I think the labels get 60% of the royalties from Spotify, and then the artists get the other 40%, split between the writers and performers. So
Wow.
if it's an Adele track and she didn't write it, she would get 20%. The writer would get 20%, and her record label would get 60%. With the new stuff, it's just us.
Right.
So we get it. We get whatever. I don't think it's not gonna buy me a Ferrari or anything like
Yeah,
that.
Spotify's
But,
tough.
for me, it's just cool that people can actually stream it and listen to it.
Well, I know
that's kind of satisfying.
I know that you're about the art and the music, and some of the stuff a lot of the stuff you've done over the years has been more of like to keep doing music, to keep doing art, to give back to the fans, like a lot of that stuff. But money is important in a way. At some point, people in your life or your own life, you have to justify what you're doing. So what have you thought about ever getting on something like a Patreon or a place like that? Because I utilize Patreon, and it's just a way that you could release maybe stuff that you never released, or a new song, or hey, I play a acoustic cover for you today. And ever looked in?
I've seen my friend Chris from IMX is on that. I'm not really quite sure how I feel about it. It seems like a lot of work. You'd have to I see him constantly creating new content for that to go on Patreon. And then also I feel like, when fans buy our music or come to our shows, they're given enough. No one in the band is doing this for a living.
Right.
Most of the money I make, I end up putting back into this. Shooting the videos were expensive. The cold video was free, but the other two, weren't free. It costs to do all this. So I basically just put the money back into making music, buying more keyboards or software, whatever I need to record. We've thought about it. We thought about doing a while back, everyone was doing the crowdfunding kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and I was never in that position where I had to do that. I was always able to finance the band myself, and then almost always got reimbursed, and then a little bit left over for the rest of the guys. So it's never come to that at this point.
Okay, like with Patreon, what I like about that is it's like you can kind of post whenever you want, and it's like somebody says $3 a month, I give $3 a month, and every week, Chris Hall or Stabbing Westward drops a random thing, something that for the fans. I think people like that. I don't mind. Like, I'm on Patreon. I have 400 patrons, and that's just for my radio and podcasting stuff. So I think that's something new that I like from some bands. There are certain bands. I think you guys are just somebody that fit that category, because I feel like people are always just, there's a thirsty, like, I don't know how many people, like maybe 300 to 2,000 people that are like, what's next? When's the next thing coming out? But that gets me into the EPs. What was the decision behind let's release these all as EPs? Is that more of like I guess it's not a business decision, because if you don't mind, what's coming in money-wise, because it's a good way to kind of re-excite everybody every 3 months that another thing's coming out.
That's more of the idea. It was kind of multifold. It was the ability to get people excited multiple times, because if we'd released a record, my dog keeps leaving the patio door open, and it's freezing outside.
My dog's doing circles upstairs. I can hear my dog upstairs rolling around, so maybe they're talking to each other or something.
I have a greyhound who's mastered the art of opening the patio door with her nose. It's pretty funny. But if we had released the whole album on January 3rd, I would probably be suicidal by now, because it was like the excitement of it was just so, like, the amount of work was so intense compared to the emotional payoff. You get like 500 comments that was awesome, and 10 comments that sucked, or it sounded like the dreaming B-sides, whatever.
Well, I saw 95%. It looked like 95% positivity from everybody.
Yeah, it was really positive.
Well, can I tell you
what's weird is that you don't get much joy out of the positive ones, but you really like the negative ones really just like get under my skin and get in my head, and make me like
that.
rethink the second EP, and like,
oh
they
dude,
really get to me.
I gotta tell you,
it's really bad.
That was a question I had for you, because I've never heard you talk about negative comments and things like that. And I mean, dude, like, I'm like a mega fan, you know, obviously I've been listening since I was 10 years old in 94. So like, for me, I think there's a divide of people, and I don't think it's negative. I think one of the problems is that you're seeing is there's a lot of people coming back who just love it. They never heard of the Dreaming. And I think some people, what I saw from anything negative, which was, by the way, when anybody else comes out with something, there's a much larger negative response. Yours, I felt like, was like so positive, but every once in a while there'd be one negative comment. I actually started dying laughing because somebody wrote, this is why something Stabbing Westward wasn't as popular as they should have been, or something. And it was like weird, like, why did you write that? And then below that, somebody wrote, "Hey, Johnny Harrow." And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I started dying.
That's random.
Only because the background of that, if you know. But it was just weird. I was like, wow, that was such a weird negative comment that doesn't make any sense. But yeah.
What did it say? What was the comment?
So the guy said, because I'm like this, I hone in on negative things too myself about my own things. But yeah, he wrote something like, "This is why Stabbing Westward wasn't popular enough or whatever as they could have been, because of these songs, the way," it was something about the song. But it's like, so then someone right below that wrote, "Hi, Johnny Harrow." Like,
that's funny. Yeah.
I started dying because
honestly, though, I don't think Johnny has any.
No, he's not going to write
negative. I don't think Johnny would say anything bad about it.
What he's somebody who isn't there anymore. Mark. What happened with Mark? Was he just going back to life as it is, or he had his kind of return? And
I guess I don't know. I didn't really talk to him about it. He just kind of announced it, and it didn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
There was always weirdness there. We were never super tight, and even back in the old days we were never close. And then when he came back, it was really cool. And he's the best guitar player for that music. I mean, he plays it so effortlessly and so naturally. I couldn't believe how good he was when he came back. It was like he never left. But I think I can say this without being offensive. I don't think that his heart was ever in the band. His favorite music is Failure and Jawbox and these kind of indie rock bands from the 90s that have just nothing to do with the style of Stabbing Westward. It's like this really underproduced, raw kind of music, and then we're like super produced, and I mean we're all about production and things like that. It's almost the exact opposite. And so when we started writing music for the new record, I sent him the songs, and his response was, "I really like the idea of putting out a Stabbing Westward record. I think that's a really cool idea, but not these songs. I would get rid of all these songs, and I would go back and maybe let me and Walter write all the songs and start from scratch." And I was like, so you like the idea, you just don't like the music that we're writing. You're like, that's so weird. So he didn't really have much to do with the writing, or anything to do with the writing at all. And then he joined another band in Chicago, the Joy Thieves, I believe it's called, or something.
Yeah.
And he was in their video, and they had this gigantic. They're on the record label that we were recording and never signed with, and they did this big launch of it, where literally every morning I would wake up, and because they would tag Stabbing Westward in every post that they would do, it would come up in my Instagram feed. Like every day, 20 times a day, I would see that, guys who had been in my band 20 years ago were now in this other band, and they were just using our name to just, push the project all over the place. And it started to really get on our nerves, because he never mentioned it. He never said, "Hey guys, I'm going to be doing this other project, and we're going to be using your name to pimp it."
Right. That's so weird.
So when we first saw it, we're like, well, who the hell in Stabbing Westward is in this band? We didn't even know. We're like, they can't do this. They can't use our name in all these ads and all these things. I mean, because it was like in every, like, they would have like videos where Stabbing Westward logo would come up featuring members of. I'm like, and I called once. I'm like, are you in this band?
So
He's like, no,
weird.
I was going to call you. Are you in this band? I'm like, no. What the heck's going on? And then we found out it was Mark and Dave, the old drummer from Ungod.
What?
And,
he's like, back with him?
Well, what's that? Yeah, Dave, the drummer from Ungod, is playing in that band too, which is totally cool. I think it's cool. I think it's really good music. We were just
they
surprised.
Like former members of Stabbing Westward, that's one thing. Like that is a little bizarre, but that's
So there was some friction from that, and I don't think that he thought it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of resentment in our camp about how it went down and the fact that it was never mentioned to us, stuff like that. I think it just, I don't know. I don't know what happened. It just happened. I was just like,
this stuff happens a lot in bands and everywhere. It always just feels like, and from fans' perspective, like fans always just feel bad because they just like everybody, so they're always like, oh, like even I'd always think that way, and I'd always think, man, what's going on? And I see it on YouTube actually now because I'm so prevalent on here, or prominent, whatever, and have so many co-hosts and people get into fights and break up, and then the fans are upset, and then everybody trades words about each other. But yeah, no, I that is weird, and who knows what he was thinking. But going back to the criticism thing real quick, I think one thing was, I think a lot of Dreaming fans, the way that you write and the way that things are produced now is kind of in the current style of things, and you writing the same music. So I think some people heard some of the Dreaming stuff from before, like Rise Again. This, like, to me feels kind of like a take from that, like it's right after that. It's the newest music after Rise Again, but now it's Stabbing Westward. And because I listened to the Dreaming,
the thing that's so confusing to me is that when we were in the Dreaming, when I was in the Dreaming, people said it wasn't Stabbing Westward enough.
Right.
and I agree. I actually agree. When I started the Dreaming, my goal was to be, more industrial and more electronic than Stabbing Westward. But the group of guys that I hooked up with sort of
it was like
organically took over the project. Yeah, Jinx is a very strong-willed guitar player with his own very strong style of guitar playing, and he just sort of forced his way into the sound, and Sticks and Stones and Bullet and all the like guitar solos and all that sort of that sound is Jinx. He did that. And then after that, it started to turn more into, I thought Puppet was much more industrial than what it was before, but we were on that stupid record label, and the record label hired a guy to mix us who turned down all that stuff and turned up all the guitars because they wanted to try and get us on, Midwest rock radio. And it's like, well, changing the sound of the band to get us on Midwest rock radio is not going to accomplish anything, because I'm actually trying to be true to my art and reach our old fans, and Midwest rock people are not going to like us. So it ended up not achieving anything. And when we did Rise Again, it was finally the first chance that we had to really kind of do it ourselves.
Yeah.
The thing that kept that being fully Stabbing Westward was that Walter walked into the project when it was mostly written. So a lot of those songs had already been written as Dreaming songs. And then Walter came in and sort of added and produced and sort of recreated tracks and stuff like that. Like what he did with Afraid, I thought was super cool. But we weren't starting from scratch. The only song that really started from scratch was Alone. And even that was an old sort of Stabbing vocal idea that he had a piece of music that he had written prior, and we were able to kind of put them together. You still there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm listening. I'm like,
okay.
No, that's okay. No, Alone was the
Sorry.
one. Alone was definitely the song, and I don't know, Destroy. Alone and Destroy, to me, I was like, well, this is really sounds like Stabbing Westward. Alone and Destroy to me.
Well, I have a hard time like differentiating between the monikers, because my voice is my voice.
Right.
My writing style is my writing style. Now in the new EP, Walter's writing style is coming to the forefront, you know, more than mine, I suppose. And that was sort of the three classic sounds of Stabbing Westward. When people say, oh, it doesn't sound like Stabbing Westward, or it sounds like the German, it doesn't sound like Stabbing Westward, you have to remember there were three very, very different versions of Stabbing Westward. Ungod was written with Stuart Zeckman, who did, you know, 50 or 60% of that record. And his guitar style and his songwriting style completely changed the sound of the band.
Right.
And then he left after one record. And
Andy came in and kind of
Andy came in. He took Dave's place. Dave, who kind of put his stamp on the first record, not necessarily in a positive way, because Chris Frenna had been our drummer when we started Ungod, and then he got invited back into Nin, and Dave was a high school buddy of Walter's, and he came and filled in for him. And we had songs that were straight up sort of electronic industrial songs, like Live, where it's just a 16th note hi-hat, 4 on the floor kick drum, and a snare pattern. So it was like a you know, like a Nine Inch Nails dance track, basically. And Dave came in with his, you know, Neil Peart drum kit with 47 bongos and congas and all these like timbales and stuff, and turned it into a Peter Gabriel World Beat record, which a lot of people raved about. And I thought, you know, Can't Happen Here and Lost and stuff like that were awesome. Yeah. But I thought it lost some of the just traditional industrial dance qualities that, you know, we had sort of like, you know, not obviously not trademarked. They were, you know, part of the cliche of being an industrial band, but it was part of the sound of being the band. We lost those. And then when Andy joined the band, he brought with him his Exotic Birds collection of music, which included What Do I Have to Do, Sometimes It Hurts, Haunting Me, Crushing Me. All those songs were songs that he had written before Stabbing Westward when he was in the Exotic Birds. Yeah. And so those just immediately changed the sound of the band. I mean, the DNA of the band changed from the moment Andy joined. And because What Do I Have to Do was the first hit, Stabbing Westward, the band, was now sort of rebranded with this music that none of the actual members of Stabbing Westward had written. So for the next, you know, 5-10 years, we're trying to like recapture What Do I Have to Do, but nobody from the original band was actually there when that song was written. So it was just, it was weird. And then Walter wrote Save Yourself and Shame, So Far Away, Violet Mood Swings, all those. So that's his style. And his style, I thought, became the sort of classic Waking Up Beside You, you know, the classic sound of the band, aside from the What Do I Have to Do type radio hits. But it's really... like there were grunge songs. There were songs with no keyboards. There was like Don't Believe and Desperate Now and Crushing Me. There's like a whole On Your Way Down, Everything I Touch. All those songs had no keyboards. They were just like, it could have been Bush songs. Right. So there's like this whole spectrum of sound that was Stabbing Westward. So when someone says it doesn't sound like Stabbing Westward, I'm like, can you hone in on that? Can you narrow down what particular sound it is that you're looking for? Because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've got a very clear idea in my head of what I could describe it as, but I mean, I'll say it later, I guess. But I right now I want to really talk about the Cold video because it just came out, and it's cool because it just came out. Like I didn't know it was even coming out today, and here it is. I just popped it up last night because I finished. Oh right, yeah, because you're excited. Yeah, you want to get it out there. You're like, let's go. Okay. I was just, I'm done, and I was like, the other two had their like, hey, this is happening, blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm just gonna put it up so it happens. Well, you got the trumpet whipped out in it, which was a question I had a while back before I heard Cold, and then I was like, oh, he whipped out the trumpet on a song. So in the video, you're playing trumpet. Is that like your original trumpet from way back when that you played before? No. Okay, you had to rent one, or you bought a new one, or? No, I have like 4. Oh, really? Okay, cool. Yeah, I have one from way back when. I have the one from I played in college, and the one that I played in Warsaw. But it's a little beat up. Yeah. So I have that. That's a silver Bach. That one is, and it sounds really nice. How many? That's the one I recorded with too. That's cool. So with this video, the idea behind the videos, I assume, is like
everything has to have a video now, or it's not going to really on YouTube to do well. You know, you need something to push around. So we're going to make a video for everything, no matter what.
I guess. I mean, I think the idea was I wanted all the songs to have something visual for YouTube, because I know a lot of people listen that way, and I didn't want it just to be the album art. And then I discovered later that YouTube has a music channel where you just like Spotify, where they just show the album art and play the music. Yeah, I wanted to have something up, and I was gonna just do a lyric video. Was the original idea. I was just gonna have the lyrics pop up. I'd watched a bunch of lyric videos. Like, I think I could do that. I watched some how to make a lyric video on YouTube, and I was gonna do that. And then I stumbled across this Instagram app that was around at Halloween, where it was a TV, little blue TV, and when you face it at somebody or whatever, it would track their face, and it would make it look spooky and play spooky music, and it was all kind of glitchy and old looking. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I could do a video with that, where I just record each person sort of playing and singing, and like go, and I could have Walter's in Seattle. I could have him do it at his house. So the reason Walter's not in, or anyone's in those other two videos, is we only had 2 days to shoot the video, where the directors were available,
right?
And Walter couldn't come down. He had something important going on at work, and so the choice was shoot the video in January when Walter comes down for the Bar Sinister show, which means they won't be ready in time for the EP release, or shoot them without Walter. And I thought, well, if Walter's not in the video, I can't have Bobby or Carlton in the video, because Walter's the guy. He's the other guy.
You guys.
So yeah, I did. Otherwise, it's literally a training video at that point. And so I was like, so the director's like, okay, he's like, I don't mind. The director was honestly like, everyone's kind of sick of seeing bands pretend to play in a warehouse or in a field or whatever. Like, everyone's seen that video. Let's make something, really cool. So we did the other two videos in 2 days, like 2 10-hour days, in the same location. And I forgot what to say. Oh, so I was editing with these Instagram filters, and I had Walter shoot some stuff of him playing keyboard in Seattle, and then I went to Carlton's house and I filmed him playing in his living room in front of his gigantic stack of amps that he just has set up in his living room, which I find so odd. Drove out to Bobby's, filmed him playing in his garage, and then I had Carlton film me in front of a painting that he did in his bedroom while he was standing on his futon. So it was all done like super hacky.
Yeah.
And then Carlton and I went to Bar Sinister that night, which is like this industrial club in LA.
Yeah.
And the DJ played the song, and we filmed the crowd dancing to the song, and they have these like cool go-go dancer girls. And I just happened to capture some, fairly cool footage of them dancing to the song and stuff. And I was going to edit it together inside the spooky Instagram filter TV, but I realized later that everyone's phone would make it a different size. So the TV was like a different size and a different shape on everybody's phone. And every time you would record, the TV would move a little bit and the antenna would move. So I couldn't just line them up and just edit together, because every time I would, the TV would jump around and glitch and be different sizes. I'm like, crap. So then I had to figure out like how to do it. And I went down the rabbit hole. Learned how to do green screen, found a cool, it was a month-long learning process.
No, it's cool though. Like it's cool that it just came out. I mean, it's just something. It's cool to see. It's cool to have every song kind of represented like that visually. With the first EP coming out, Dead and Gone. How many other EPs are you going to release this year?
I don't know. We were talking about 3.
Yep.
And then combining them all into an album. But now I kind of feel like that's lame. I feel like when you got the album, you would have already heard 9 of the 10 or 11 songs, and I didn't feel like that was enough of a what's the word when you a reveal. I didn't feel like it was enough of a reveal. So I've I'm kind of pushing for a second EP in May, and then the album in September. Like, and then the album will be 10 or 11 songs, and the last four or five would be revealed on the whole album. But the album will consist of songs from the first two EPs, so it's not going to be 10 other songs plus these EPs. So people are like, when are you going to release a long? I'm like, well, we are kind of releasing an album. We're just doing it slowly.
Yeah.
So that you have time to consume each song.
Yeah, it was like
otherwise,
there's
otherwise they just devour them in one another album in 3 days.
It's cool that there's a remaining excitement. I kind of like that. There's a part of me,
because otherwise it's over.
Yeah, it's all over.
What if you watch all the Marvel movies in one day? You know, it'd be like, oh, you know, all the way through to end game. You'd be just like, oh, at the end of it, or if you came late to the Harry Potter game and you read all the books in a month, at the end of that month, you'd be like, well, now I've got literally nothing to look forward to. So this way, it's kind of like you get to hear the story and hear the record over the course of a year. So it's spread out a bit more.
It'd be like if Dark.
And plus, it's so hard to finish a song at this point. It's like those were the first three songs that were the closest to being finished.
Well, and you guys are really. You're doing everything yourself a lot more. Like you said, this is probably the freest you've ever been, or at least ever been since the 80s, where like you're making the music with Walter. That's it. It's not three other people with their two songs or whatever. So, or a style like maybe somebody who's driving the band's sound or whatever. You're really kind of
right. Yeah, there's no producer or manager. There's no manager trying to turn us into the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah.
There's no producer trying to like put his stamp on it.
Now that CD's not on the Spotify. Is that because of Koch or is that?
I have no idea. I don't have any control over that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't Spotify myself.
I only have, well, I mean, like, just as I'm like looking in, I'm like, let me throw some, let me peer through some of the, because I like Wasted and a couple things on there. So I'm like, oh, let me throw
the original version of Wasted was awesome. Walter and I have actually been talking about releasing the original demos to that record because.
See, that's Patreon right there.
It was there was 2 or 3 really great songs on that record that the original versions were real true Stabbing Westward songs. Wasted, So Far Away, even Happy was a pretty Stabbing Westward song. It was pretty dark the way that we had originally recorded it, and then they just got like just destroyed in the studio. That producer was just such a hack. But but the original version of Wasted is a really cool song.
The first few songs on that CD were more of a downer on the self-titled, like, and then it sort of got like, you know, it got happy, like, not to make a joke, but like halfway through it kind of get more happier after the 5th song, and I was like, this is different. And you know, I'd listened to the demos on the website stabbingwestward.com, which now you have back again, which is really cool because for years somebody kept that site up no matter what, and that was kind of cool. And I remember they released the little clips like, hey, we're working on the songs. And when I heard them, I was like, oh, maybe they're not done yet or something, or maybe I'm not understanding. And then I had the CD when I was walking home from school, and I was like, what? I was like, this sounds so different. Like, I still like it, but because there's something, no matter what you guys do or what you do, it just seems like I tend to like it no matter what, but it definitely was a shock. And my friends who were listeners of you guys were, you know, they were the ones that were like, what is this? Like, why? It's so different.
Yeah.
But, you know, now with the Dead and Gone, the EP, I really like it. I think most people love this thing. The positivity for it's really, really been great from what I've seen. So I think people will be excited for the next one. I know that things die down after like the first day release or whatever, and I think people will, you know, come back when the second one comes out again, and then you'll get
that's and plus when we start playing some shows, I think when we had planned this, we had talked about, oh, let's schedule a tour around the release of each EP with the idea of like, oh, if you just play 1 or 2 new songs per tour, then it's a lot easier on the listener than having to sit through 8 or 10 new songs off of a record when you really just want to hear what do I have to do to save yourself. So we thought if we spread them out a little bit over the course of a year, it won't be so much work for people to, you know, they'll have a chance to get to know them before they get to the show or whatever. But then we just didn't really land any shows this winter. Nothing's really coming up till May. So
do you
the as much as people are like winding down on listening to Dead and Gone or whatever, we're already begun the battle of fighting over the second EP.
Oh, what to get a new one?
We're fighting over the second EP. Like, so the battle has already begun to rage over, like, we know what songs are going to be, but what versions are we going to use, and who's going to produce it, and like there's just been this like kind of unspoken ongoing battle happening that we kicked the can down the road on the first EP because the first 3 songs were sort of already set, but now the rest of them are like, there's going to be there'll be blood.
All right, well, that's the way this should end, because that was a great line. But deciding between but I have to ask you, speaking of the dreaming and there will be blood, are you at the point where you want to say, like, because it was said that you owed another dreaming record, is that like, do we want to move on from that and finally say, no, it's just Stabbing Westward now, we're not going to go back to...
I missed you after you said I owe another dreaming record. I didn't hear you dropped that.
I had heard that you owed another dreaming record, but is this...
I do, to Metropolis, yeah.
Is that really something that's going to happen, you think? I mean, it's hard to say right now with all this stuff.
It doesn't really make any sense right now, and that's what I told Metropolis. I said, nobody... It's like, now that we've opened Pandora's box of doing Stabbing shows, going back and doing a Dreaming album would just I don't know who I would convince to play shows with me, because it's like, oh, well, we could be playing a sold out House of Blues show for $10,000, or we could be playing a tiny club for 40 people as the Dreaming for, and sleep on someone's floor and split 2 Subway sandwiches between 5 guys. I mean, that's how we rolled in the Dreaming, because no one knew about us. And so it was just all heart. Everyone just did it for the love of it and the free alcohol. But with how do you convince those same people to voluntarily take a step backwards and go back to that life? No one's going to do that. So the idea is kind of absurd at this point. That being said, if during the course of this record or whatever, a bunch of material gets written by me that doesn't, go on this record or whatever, then maybe I'll put out something, and maybe it's just more of a vehicle for. I always try to have it be a band, but as you look through the history of the band, the only constant was Johnny and Carlton to some small degree.
Yeah.
So and me. I mean, I was never comfortable saying that was my band. It was me. I didn't want it to be a solo thing. I always wanted it to be a band. But I'm more comfortable now saying, yes, I was the driving force behind that, and I actually gave up too much creative control to other people, and sort of this communist, sort of socialist, everyone should contribute sort of mentality. And I think if I went back to it, I would just do it as a solo thing. But I don't see any need for it right now.
Are you last question, I guess, do you have a name for the next EP, since you guys are still kind of deciding over what you're doing, or anything about what's coming up that you...
Yes, I do.
And what do I have to do to make you tell me it?
It'd be a shame if I told you now.
Oh man, but I'll have such a violent mood swing, like, if you don't.
I remember, but the only thing is I just can't tell you. I don't want to tell you yet.
All right.
How many of these puns can we go through?
I don't know.
I know the answer, and it's crushing me, but I don't believe that.
Why?
I have nothing to say to this right now. Anything I said now would just be lies.
You win. Chris wins.
The pun contest.
Chris wins the pun contest. Christopher
We're still trying to come up with a name for the album, actually. That's the hard part. Yeah, because I was going to name the album Dead and Gone. That was supposed to be the name of the album. But that ended up being the first EP. So, which is ironic, because The Dreaming Rise Again was sort of the rising again of Stabbing Westward, and Dead and Gone would have been a more apropos name for that album because The Dreaming was dead and gone, and now Rise Again would be the perfect name for this album. But that ship has sailed. So.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll be cool. It'll be good to get a whole album for Stabbing Westward coming this year. That's pretty awesome. So, everybody check out stabbingwestward.com. Check out their Instagram. Check out they're on Twitter, but their YouTube is really important because they're releasing videos there. So Christopher Hall.
Yeah, the YouTube's a big deal. Instagram. I'm on Instagram, so I don't do the Facebook. I do the absolutely necessary posts, but Instagram's where I like to hang out.
Yeah. All right. So check them out on Instagram. Plus, all the announcements are coming there too. Anyway, first, so check out. It is at Stabbing Westward on Instagram, or is there something different?
I think so. It might be some funky spelling because for some reason fans think it's cool to steal the name of the band and then never, like, even the Facebook is like Stabbing Westward without an A or something, because the guy who has Stabbing Westward won't give us our name back, and it's like, dude, what's up?
That's bizarre.
Chicks, is that getting you laid? I don't know what's the plan.
Like, yeah, there's some weird dudes out there. Like, I'm the leader of the Stabbing Westward Portland something. What's your name? It's
weird. There was a guy in the Bay Area that during the dawn of the internet, I think like 2002 or so, 2001, 2002, was claiming he was me and doing wedding photographs for people. And I found out about it. I'm like, this is not me. He doesn't even look like, he's like a very large, heavy-set guy with long, greasy hair. Like,
Jim Sellers is taking
not me. What's that?
So Jim Sellers was saying that he was you doing.
No. Jim had an awesome business going, man.
Yeah, wasn't he a grocery something with grocery store or something like that?
Oh, it was like a cool cafe, Whole Foods kind of place. Yeah, him and Andy are both kicking butt in the real world. So yeah, Jim's got one or two kids. I know he's got a little girl, and he's kicking butt in the business world right now. So
one thing I can say is we wanted him
to come play with us, but
he said no. Yeah, he just too busy.
Yeah, he said he's just too busy, and I just like, the door is open anytime. We don't even have a bass player now, so if you ever want to come play, it's literally right there.
Well, you guys were hilarious. I have so many. I have all the archives, all the stuff, and like Jim is really a funny guy. Like you guys.
Oh my God, he is so funny.
Like
there's that thing he said in 120 minutes. We hosted 120 minutes, and there would be like a teleprompter, and you're supposed to read, the Nixons coming up next, but first this video from blah blah blah, and he would read it like, the Nixons coming up next, but first. He would just do these things that, like, he would do it on the fly, and it would just be so ridiculous. And yeah, he kept the bus laughing all the time. He was hilarious.
Yeah, man,
he's that guy.
In another life, he's a stand-up comedian or whatever. It's funny.
Oh yeah, he could have easily been a stand-up comedian. But he's more of a skit guy.
Yeah.
Than stand-up. He wasn't like standing up telling jokes. He would go into like these character skits and stay in them for like a couple of days. He'd be like the Jiffy Pop pimp guy, and he'd just like he'd find a hat, like someone would drop their hat at a show and he'd put it on and it would turn him into a new person, and he'd be that guy until someone took the hat off and threw it up his butt or something. It was hilarious.
I saw you do something recently that was kind of funny. It was maybe a couple of years ago now, but like you were putting your hands out into the crowd to like give people high fives or something, and some guy like put his finger out at you, and you stuck your finger out at him, and then after that,
you did the ET thing.
Yeah, and then everybody started being like, "Oh, he'll touch me if I put my finger out." So then people changed, and it's just the funniest thing because after a few minutes, you're like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah, what are we doing? Yeah, if there could be like a show that had like a bubble coming out of my head that showed you what I was thinking about while it looked like I was just having a nervous breakdown on stage, it would be so funny, because half the time it's looking at the audience and like there'll be like a couple getting in a fight and it completely distracts me, and I'm like obsessed with like making sure she's okay or whatever. Or there'll be like some dude trying to bully his way up to the front row and that'll distract me. Or there'll just be like just some chick in the front row looking at her phone like the entire time, like taking up
Right.
like a huge prime piece of real estate. I'm literally like sweating on top of her, and she's just looking at her phone, and just like the things that are going through my head. Like I'll be thinking about the next song, like, oh, I have to make sure that I, go plug in my bass guitar for the next song, and then I'll completely forget the lyrics to the song. So it's like the things going through your head. Like, where did I put my phone?
You're
Is my phone in my bag, or is it sitting by the drums?
When you're seeing all these people, you're seeing all these people in the crowd that like don't know that that you see them, and they're like they're doing things that maybe they think no one's looking or whatever, and there's such a light on them for you. So yeah, it's so strange. And you're really interactive with people. So the people with the phones who are staring at their phones, it's like they're really missing out. Like, I mean, like
that hurts.
I remember
that's like soul destroying.
That's bizarre. Like 2006, I saw you in Worcester on Cement Shoes, the Dreaming Tour, where you guys get to play those 4 songs. And I remember I was like, that was the last time I remember not really seeing everybody on phones. And I remember like,
yeah, that's kind of the early day of phones. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was before iPhones.
Yeah, we pushed our way up to the front, like eventually, like to see you guys, because a lot of people there, El Nino and all that other stuff, and like you were going around to everybody and getting involved. There's some singers and bands now they just stand up there and they don't even do that. And you came right out. I remember you let me scream into the mic. Like there's people are having a good time everywhere, like and yeah, now it's like everyone's like staring at a phone, and then the person on stage even doesn't interact anymore sometimes.
Well, it's hard to interact when they're looking at a phone because they're literally looking at you on a little 4-inch screen. When you're like, we don't play arenas, we're playing clubs and theaters. So I'm literally like stepping on your fingers, and you're holding your phone up in my face like I'm a tiger in a zoo.
Yeah, you're like in a zoo.
It's always been my goal to make eye contact with as many human beings as I can in a show, like to sing to them and to like make eye contact and share that moment where we're in it together and to exchange that energy. That's always been my goal, and phones have just freaking ruined that.
Yeah,
they just ruined it. Like I'll look around and if I look around, like there's some crowds where just everyone has a phone, and when it's that night, I just close my eyes. I'll go grab a mic stand, put it in the middle of the stage, and lean on it and close my eyes and try and just sink into the music. But I'd much rather connect to the audience. It's much more like it feeds me a lot more.
Well, thanks, Christopher, for taking
an hour when we
said we'd do a half an hour for talking with me.
Sorry.